Hey girl, hey! I'm going to be chatting with Tania. My name is Gina DeFord. I'm the founder of Babe Crafted. I probably should have said that first. So I'm going to be chatting with Tania. She is a London-based confidence and courage coach. We're going to be talking about supporting moms as they return to work, or maybe they have been working and running a business or in their career and they're still trying to juggle the priorities of being a mother, being a business owner, being, career motivated. Hi everyone, welcome. So we're going to give Tania a moment to join the conversation. Please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. And I have some questions that were pre-submitted for Tania, but there's plenty of time and space for your questions too. So don't be a shy babe. Tania should be joining us any moment. I hope everyone is having a really fantastic week. I'm very excited for this convo because I feel like there's so much advice, some nice, some not so nice for moms. I think it's really important to find but in order to do that, we need a lot of support. So Tania is going to be popping up on this screen. She's going to share a little bit about herself. Hello, there you
Hi,
go.
how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
We're very hot in here. We're in London right now. It's 26 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure in Fahrenheit what it is, but for us, we've had that for the last few weeks. We can't complain, but English people, they love the hot weather. But after they complain, they're like, it's too hot. We're missing the rain. And when it rains, then they say, oh my gosh, that was our summer. Now back to the rain. So this is typical English chit chat. So thanks for having me today. As I've just said, I live in London. I used to work in finance for 9 years. I reconverted as a coach, and I'm an executive coach. And now I kind of focus mostly on working mothers. And I've been developing this concept and idea of the 21st century mom, and what it means to be a 21st century mom nowadays. It's tricky sometimes as a mother to feel like you want to be working more than you want to be mothering, and it's a distinction that's very important for the 21st century mom. It doesn't mean that you work more than you love your kids, but it's just accepting that. I figure that I'm a bit twisted, sorry. It's accepting that you need to be able to do something to feel fulfilled in your life, and that can kind of triggers a lot of guilt for mothers that are returning back to work, and some of them are more rushed to go back to work than others, and it depends on a lot of different factors. And sometimes we forget that we all have different skills and preferences, and we think that just applies in our work, in the things that we do, but it also applies in motherhood. Like when I ask my clients, when I do talks around that, and I ask my clients what is their favorite stage of child development, the answers are very, very different. And again, that may change, but some of us might like the baby phase, others might like more the toddler phase, and it all depends on your skills. If you're more of a creative person, if you're more of a mentor person, I think categorizing and trying to compare yourself to all the other mothers out there and thinking, okay, I should be feeling in a certain way because that's what is expected of me as a mom. And I think that's what I'm trying to develop more and more, is that this concept of the 21st century mom. I'm testing it out there, so I'd love to hear any comments or questions that you may have around that. But basically, returning back to work is not as it's a little bit about being truth to yourself around, first of all, seeking the truth of your emotions and saying, okay, what is it actually happening to me? Whether you're excited to go back to work because you've had enough of being at home. That some of my clients do feel this way, or you may feel very anxious about it. That's how I felt with my first one. The baby phase is for me one of my favorite stage of development. It's that phase where I feel like the connection is happening, etc., with my child, and it's very hard to leave the child behind. And it's a very kind of it brings so many mixed feelings. And so for me, returning back to work after the first one was very difficult, even though it was doing coaching, something that I love, something that I know that I came to this world to do, to help others, to kind of raise awareness, to become a better kind of version of who I am. But it was very hard to do so, and some clients feel that way, and they're saying, how am I going to be able to go back to work, and ask for the flexibility that I would love to get. And sometimes it's about defining what are those things that you want. Is it picking up your child? Is it dropping your child in the morning? Is it bath time? Is it bedtime? And listing those priorities. So I would say 21st century mom as a first pillar is a truth seeker when it comes to what kind of mother she wants to be, and what kind of emotion she's going through herself. Seeking the truth is part of who she is as a mother.
My goodness, girl. Okay, so that was a lot of you just shared a lot of really great nuggets into what a 21st century mom is, a little bit about your history and some of your challenges, like being a mom and being career motivated, and then also figuring out what kind of mom you want to be and being cool with that. So let's go ahead and dive into a little bit more of the conversation around being a 21st century mom, and how do you decide or give yourself permission to be the mom that you want to be? Because, with both of us being business owners, like, we're very familiar with the comparison game, right? Like, there are lots of different ways to run a business, lots of different, opportunities there. But, oh my gosh, being a mom, so I don't have any kiddos yet, but I hear from other moms, like, the comparison game is definitely running rampant for moms because there's lots of different ways to do that too. So how can you decide what kind of mom you want to be? What kind of advice can you give to women who are trying to, grappling with, well, I feel like I want to be this, but I don't know if I can?
Definitely. Thanks for that question, Gina. I see some familiar faces there. Chelsea, Ernesto, Christina. It's so nice to see you there. So yes, I would say that the common thread for all mothers is guilt, right? Guilt is the main. It's something that mothers have to live with, but there's a difference between having guilt on a solid form and having guilt on a dissolving guilt. If you imagine guilt being pills that you put inside the water, having it dissolve and being able to actually function better with that guilt. And I think all mothers should be able to focus on that. And there's three kind of typical guilt that keep coming back for working mothers, for mothers returning back to work. The first one is wanting a career. Is it okay for me to actually want a career? Are my kids going to be okay? So that's one thing. Then the second thing is time with the kids. And I get a lot of questions about, I'm not spending as much time as I'd like with the kids, and they feel guilty about that. So it's about redefining what quality time is, with your kids. And I know that we hear a lot about the term quality time, and then when you see certain moms spending more time than you with their children and doing different things than you with your children, that's where the comparison starts. And you ask yourself, okay, so maybe I'm not doing enough, or I'm not good enough. But that's where it's important to understand your skills and to also understand the preferences of your child, and understand what kind of cycle of life that your child is going through, if they're going through assessments or exams, or if they're going through sports competition, etc. And how do you want to align that with your own skills? So to give you an example, my daughter, she's 4 years old, and as a mom of a daughter, I thought to myself, I'll register her to a ballet class, and that's going to be our quality time together. I'll take her there, I'll watch her, let's see, how this goes. And the first few classes were great, but after the second class, she was acting out, and she was not responding to what the teacher would ask her to do. For instance, she would ask her to go on her tippy toes through the magic forest. and she would just stomp and run around, and the teacher would ask her, why are you doing that? And she said, look, I want to get lost in the magic forest. I want to be in the park. So she actually told the teacher what she wanted, which was not to be there, but actually to be in the park, to play by herself, me being around. And we decided that this time would be her learning how to cycle. And now last week she finally cycled without her back wheels, which was fantastic. But instead of, what I thought was meant to be being a good mom of her daughter would be to take her to a ballet class, it's actually asking yourself, what is actually what my daughter wants to do? And that's redefining quality time together. And it's something that I love doing, going in nature with her, teaching her something, because that's the kind of mom I am. So instead of spending, 4 hours with her, I would spend an hour, and I spend even less time, because it's total quality time. After that, I'm actually even able to work. So it's all about, you will know as a mom, you have the intuition of how much time is enough, and that you're able to actually go back to your career if that's what you want to do. If you don't want to do that, then that's also okay. So that's the question about how much time can I spend working, and how much time can I spend being a mother. It's about redefining that quality time. And there's also this misconception that we have, that we think we should be spending 24/7 with the kids, otherwise we're not good mothers or good parents. But we know very well, and that's something that Jen Pulwiller, stand-up comedian, talks about a lot, that even back in the days, mothers were not 100% of their time with their children, right? There was this concept of the village and the community, which you can recreate, and that's something Gabor Mate, who's a physicist, talks a lot about. The idea of creating your own village, and this village doesn't necessarily have to be your parents, or because very often we don't live close to our parents anymore. It's all scattered, but it can be other adults, other parents from different schools that may be able to help. So it's forcing yourself to create that, and depending on where you live, it's harder or easier. Depending on the type of school, it's harder or easier. But you can create that village of support. I wouldn't be able to be there talking to you tonight without my village, as there was an unexpected thing happening, which was there was a tube strike, and the person that usually helps me wasn't able to come. So I asked my friend to look after one of my 3 children, and she stepped up, and I will do the same for her. And I think we have to be able to accept that, and that's another guilt pill that we need to dissolve, which is that we cannot do it alone. And that's something that moms think, that they should be able to do it all and alone. They should be able to enjoy every single phase of motherhood. They should be able to enjoy every moment with their children. These are all myths that we have to dissolve, and to say, okay, guilt is actually okay because it makes you improve as a human being, but it's when it becomes, as shame, then it paralyzes you, and then it doesn't help you make improvement as a mother.
My goodness, I love everything that you've just shared there, and I think it's been really cool, like hearing about like the evolution of that idea, that example of quality time that you shared, Tania, about, well, how about these ballet classes? And it turned out that actually wasn't what your daughter was most interested in, and you were flexible and you transformed that into, okay, well, let's spend some more time together at the park. So before I ask you the next question, Tania, I want to ask everyone who's tuning in, what does quality time look like for you and your kiddos? And if you don't have kiddos yet, well, feel free to let us know what you would like that to look like for yourself in the future. So we're going to keep an eye out.
I see Karen's joined as well, and I know what quality time is for her, if I may say, Karen. It's walking her doggy with her daughter. That's one of them. She shared that with us. I did a talk around that last week, and she was sharing that with her teenage daughter, actually. And yes, it can be as easy as that. And there's an exercise that I was mentioning as well in my talk last week about how you can find out what quality time is for you. And it's an exercise used in psychology a lot. which is fine for, like you sit down with your kids and you bring some Skittles, some I don't know if those exist in the US, but yeah, okay, maybe it's American. Sorry about my ignorance, but maybe it's actually American. I don't know. You bring different colors, 3 different colors, and then you ask your child 4 things that he loves in the family, to do as a family thing, and what he likes about the family, and 4 things they don't like doing as a family. But it's important you don't interrupt them. You let them answer one thing at a time. Usually the parent has to start and set the example. Let's say I like going for a walk with you. I like sitting down, watch TV with you. So the first parent says one thing, the second one says another thing, and then you let the other child talk. And if there's different siblings, it's one at a time. Every time they say an answer, you give them one of the Skittles, right, to eat. So they're motivated to do that. You sit down and you write down the 4 things they like, the 4 things they don't like. And it is great also to set rules with your children, and behavior changes as well. And I found that the answers can be, like Chelsea says, the simple things: time together, walking together, and my son, it's actually wrestling with my husband. It's his favorite thing in the world. So if you want to punish him, you say, well, punish is a big word, but if you want to use consequences with him, if you want to say if or when you don't do that, then there's not going to be wrestling, then he will actually, it would be hard for him. It's not anything materialistic, and sometimes we think they want something materialistic, but it's not. So that's a great way to define quality time and matching your skills with what they want. There's someone, Sophia said, it really depends. My youngest quality time is watching our favorite shows. With my oldest, I'm still trying to figure it out. Okay, well, I hope that's going to help you, Sophia. And if you have more questions on how to do it, I realized I was rushing explaining to you what this exercise was. But if you want more on how to do it, let me know. I actually have it here on my window. So you get some big boards like that. You sit down, you use different pens and colors, and you kind of define quality time with your children, and you can create rules around that as well. So don't hesitate to contact me for more on how to do that.
That's such an awesome method. And Sophia, I'm excited for you to find out what is going to resonate the most for you and your oldest. Cheers to figuring it out for your younger son, but excited for you to find out that thing for you and your older son too. Tania, let's dive into mom guilt a little bit more. I know we've touched on it throughout our conversation, but first and foremost, figuring out what kind of mother you want to be, and identifying quality time for you and your children so that you can enjoy that time together. But mom guilt is something that doesn't really go away, right? And I think developing some strategies for when you recognize that's what you're feeling or that's what you're experiencing, how can you shoo it away? Can you give us a little bit more context there and some tips and ideas too?
Yes, that's a great question, Gina. Especially, like you said, it doesn't really go away, right? And a mentor of mine, Sam Karashi, talks about emotional dissolution and guilt being one of the emotions. How do you dissolve that? By naming it, but you gotta like, for instance, if the guilt is returning back to work, then you pause and you ask yourself, okay, I feel guilty, and what are the other things that you may be feeling? And you name all these emotions, but with no shortcut. You say, I feel guilt, I feel awkward, I feel anxious, I feel scared. You don't do any shortcuts, say, by listing them one after the other. You pause and you kind of ask yourself, okay, so what is it that I'm actually feeling right now? So if, let's say, you feel guilty all the time as a mother, as a working mother, whether you're working or not. Even dads feel guilty, for not being there enough, or for having done certain things that they regret. So guilt it's always there. Guilt can be as simple as, I've said no to the chocolate biscuit, for instance. Even though like for the example of the chocolate biscuit, it's easy to say why. and acknowledge that it's actually because you don't want them to eat before dinner so that they can eat healthy foods, right? So it's all about kind of your rules around that. And I would say a little bit it applies also with moms when it comes to going back to work, right? So it's saying, okay, what are your priorities in life? And you know, you and I, we've spoken in the past about the idea of values, but values are very important in understanding your priorities. So when sometimes I see my client says I don't really know what my priorities are right now, there's so much going on. Well, June actually is a moment where here, especially in London, if you have a few different kids in different schools, it can become a real nightmare. So you can't really plan anything in June because you have, you know, the plays, the sports days, then you have the parent rep meetings, and you can't really plan stuff if you want to be present as a parent. It's very hard. But outside of June and December, let's say the rest of the year, you can plan as a working mom. You can plan your week, and you can be realistic. It's any goal setting exercise. You can be realistic on the amount of time you're able to dedicate working that week. If you're working as an entrepreneur, you know that's it's easier to do that. If you're working for corporate, then it's way less easy to do that because you don't have the flexibility of the hours. But let's say you are able to be flexible in that instance, then you kind of tell yourself, okay, realistically this week I'll only be able to work for 20, 25, 30 hours. So what can I do during that time that I feel that I'm going to be productive at work? And then you kind of accept that this is what you have to work with. You will not be able to do magical stuff during that time. And the same applies with goal setting. If you, let's say, want to become the number one, I use that example a lot, but let's say you want to become the number one public speaker of the world, and you know it might take you 6 hours a day of work for I don't know, a whole year, but you're only able to give 1 hour of work or 2 hours of, or let's say 3 hours of work half the time, then you know it's going to take you double the amount of time to get there. And it's sometimes I think we're very guilty of not accepting, you know, the reality of things. It's very good to be ambitious. It's great, and I really encourage that. So you know, like how much can you do during that time? But we need to be also realistic. I was as working mothers, and I was talking to also somebody with a chronic illness who was saying that it's very similar for them, you know, with a chronic illness when they're not sure how they're going to be the next day, if they're going to be okay to work, etc. And it's even more uncertain, and how to be happy with this uncertainty. The problem we have is that some children really struggle with change of plans as well, right? So you have to be able to balance everything, you know, the emotion of your child and your own. And there's another thing that we hear a lot, which is, what is it that you can control? What is it that you can't control? And it's not easy, but of course you cannot really control your children's emotion and behavior. You can just help them go through it. But you want, as a mom that loves and cares so much for their children, you want to be able to control something, right? And it's accepting and keeping telling to yourself that you can't control that. We can't, you know, like when they behave in a certain way, we can't take things personally. And it's a constant reminder of this, and that's why it's so hard sometimes to dissolve that guilt, because that guilt takes over the whole body.
That's an incredible point, Tania, about guilt it's not just this like intangible idea. Like it really does have an effect, you know, on your mind, on your body, on your heart. And there's, you know, I mean, we do have to process that, and, you know, in order to really let it go and not hold on to it. I love that you said, you know, that we need to be realistic, you know, and I think another way to think about being realistic with our goals and how we're going to use our time, is being fair to ourselves, you know, because if we're not, grounding these goals in what we can actually accomplish, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. And then that's a whole different spiral that, moms are going to send themselves into. So being fair to yourself by setting goals, like of course, in a perfect world, which none of us live in that perfect world, you'll say, oh, I could spend 6 hours on this. But is that really, being fair to yourself?
Yeah.
Like, make it a fair goal, and then you can hit it, and then you can keep moving forward and making progress and stacking up those good days. Tania, can you talk a little bit more about these priorities for moms? Like identifying these priorities, maintaining these priorities. It
Yeah.
sounds really great, but how can we do it?
Yes, I can't seem to be able to see the comment on top of Sophia's. There was a question around planning. I'm not
Yes.
able. What is it?
So Spree Jean said, I love the goal and planning suggestions. This is a great method to help recover or eliminate mom guilt.
All right, thank you, Sprijin, for this. Yes, so to your question in terms of priorities, I find that a great, well, if you're able to do the value exercise, it's a great starting point, because you keep that. It's not like then you end up knowing all your values by heart. No, but you keep them on the side, and you go back to it, because it does make sense. At the beginning, I find that my clients, when they start the value exercise, they're a bit skeptical, and they'll be saying, "Oh, it's just a list," and it doesn't necessarily resonate when you look at a list, right? But when you start brainstorming and you're like, "Okay, why is this my value?" Let's say, why when you have a family, most of the time, family will be your values, but you'll be surprised that very career focused women might not put family as their top 3 or 5 values. It might be in their top 10. But and the guilt might stem from that. What I was telling you about the fact that maybe money is or fame might be something more important to them at that moment of time. And it's important to pause on the moment of time, because values change. As you can imagine, before having children, and when you were at university, and today, your values change. When we're younger, we might seek more the esteem of others, whereas when we get older, we seek more the esteem, our own esteem, our self-esteem. We still compare ourselves to others, but we ask ourselves, is it making sense? Is the life that I'm actually living, does that make sense? And when you have children, you ask yourself, what kind of legacy, what do I want to leave to my children? How do I want them to remember me, right? And those are questions that in my group coaching, I ask clients at the beginning. Sometimes I ask them, how would you like to be remembered in one sentence, right? So what would be the sentence that would be you and describe you? And it's a nice exercise sometimes to just say, okay, that's actually what matters to me. And when you've done the value exercise, it's easier to come up with that sentence, because you kind of know the reasons. But the priorities, it's as simple as creating a list of all the stuff that you would like, or that you're doing as a mom, or that you are expected to do as a mom, that you think are expected to do as a mom, like groceries, picking up the kids, dropping the kids, house chores, homework, time outside, taking them to activities, anything that you may think is part of that list. And as simply as it is, just rating them out of 10. And then at the end of this, you can ask yourself 3 things. You can say, is there anything I can plan for the next 90 days, let's say? And that's a time management exercise, basically. Is there anything that I can plan within the next 90 days? Let's say in the priorities that you've got is, again, teaching your daughter how to cycle would be a priority, or teaching her how to swim, or I don't know, talking about a certain situation, something that happened at her school that is important, or anything that may be important for the two of you to share. And I'm talking about one-on-one time, but it can be the same with more than one child. But I'm a very much one-on-one kind of person. I thrive more as a mom when I'm doing one-on-one rather than group. But that's also very different with others. Others thrive when they're surrounded by more than one child, because it's, you know, it's, we're all very different in that perspective. So you've got that priority list. You rate them quickly. You take some time to write all the things on the list, and you'll come up with at least 10 or 20 stuff for sure. Then you rate them, and then you can ask yourself, is there anything that I can delete from it? Because sometimes, let's just say, having a house tidy 100% might not be the priority, but for some it is. My husband, for instance, that's the thing that drives him nuts when he comes home and he sees the house not tidy. So you know what, because I can't do everything, then I will hire, you know, like, I'm lucky that I'm able to hire someone to come and tidy up more often that needed. She comes 3 times a week for a few hours, and that makes the whole difference. But I've accepted that I would need to hire someone so that I can actually focus on the things that are more priority for me, which is spending one-on-one time with them, working. And it's and a lot of people actually feel guilty. They have the means, they have the money, but they would feel guilty putting the money because they have the flexibility at home. And they're like, I'm actually only working part-time. I'm not making enough money to be able to say that I can get the help, even though they can afford it, right? And money is a big thing around mom's guilt as well, which we don't always talk about. And I always very honestly say that I wouldn't be able to do all of the things that I'm doing without help. And I'm not shy to ask for help, whether it's my friends or having someone over to help. It makes the whole difference. But for the ones that are not able to get help, it's the problematic is very, very, very different. Like, for instance, if your daughter's at nursery and she's sick and you're working and you have to leave your job to go and pick her up and you don't have help, this is a completely different problematic. And I have clients that work just to be able to afford childcare just because they want to work. So it's quite tricky. And money, we're not always very honest with that, and we compare ourselves to other mothers who may, you know, be able to get as much help as they need. And that's where mom's guilt also comes into play.
Absolutely. And there's so much that you just shared that is that can be so impactful for both the people that are tuning in today and the people who are going to be watching this replay, Tania. And the thing that stood out the most to me is that you said we are all different. And that's the thing about, you know, comparing ourselves to others and mom guilt, is because mom guilt pressures us to want to be like someone else, but it's to our detriment to be like someone else, because our situations are all different. Our families all run different. Our resources are all different. So I think it's so awesome that one of the great takeaways from our conversation today is to encourage moms and families to do what works for them, and to be able to get to a point where you feel good about that.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And you know, when we chatted in the past, we talked a bit about the term like-minded, which is not a term that I love very much, and I never use it with my posts. It's a term that triggers me quite a bit, to be honest, because again, you know, I think that our children. So I know that I'm somebody who's quite anxious, highly sensitive in certain things, and I want my children to be exposed to other ways of thinking a problem, right? And that's where I think like-minded can be a trap, because you need to find, and you know, we all live in some sort of bubble wherever we live, or we live in our little surrounding. But being able to kind of say, okay, this person is going to pick up my daughter. She thinks quite differently than me in certain things. Of course, the values have to be similar, but you know, like when there's something arises, she will not get anxious about this situation, and that's it. That is awesome. So that means that my daughter can actually. I've got sons as well. Sorry for the sons. I don't know why I always use her as an example, but my daughter can actually make up her mind how she wants to respond to a situation that will match how she is. You know, she'll see that there's diversity in the way that you overcome a challenge, that there's not just one way of overcoming a challenge. And this has helped so much in my mom's guilt, so much, because the guilt that I have also is that I'm going to scar my child somehow by responding in a certain way. But if you expose them with other adults, but you have to do the work, like Gabo Mate says, you can't just pick anybody, right? But somebody that you know has the best interests of your child in their hearts, and they're gonna give them that change and diverse way of thinking. And that's what I love about London as well, and that's why I've stayed and lived here, and I didn't come back, home, which is in the south of France, even though the weather is much better there. It's for that reason. But you gotta make sure that you make that an intention for your mothering journey. That you pick the right parents, and not that it's not the children, it's the parents that matter. And the book of Gabo Mate is called "Hold On to Your Kids," and any parent, I would really highly recommend that book. It's just a fantastic book which gives those tips about how you create your village of support as a parent, not just working mothers, not just mothers, but as a parent.
That sounds like an awesome resource. So it's called Hold On to Your Kids for anyone that is interested. And so we have had such an awesome conversation today, and I hope that everyone who tuned in today will also catch the replay and pick up on anything that maybe they didn't pick up on hearing it the first time. Chelsea says she's going to snag that book. That's awesome. So Tania, give us an overview of how we can learn more about you and how we can work with you.
So on Instagram, just follow me on Instagram. I try to post some fun reels and some tips on motherhood, but also on confidence, courage. So Instagram is the best way. My website, and I have a group coaching starting in September with working mothers. So anyone interested, I'm using those next 2 months to secure the 6 women that will join season 2 of the group coaching program. So that's something for sure that might interest some working moms. It's a small community, so it's only 6 women. I find that when I've been part of groups that were very much wider in coaching, you don't get that one-to-one attention, and there's going to be group, but also one-to-one. We work on values, we work on time management, we work on priorities, we work on goal setting. So it's a fantastic safe place to join if anyone's interested in group coaching.
So phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for everything that you've shared today, all of your tips and all of your encouragement. You're wonderful.
You are too. Thanks, Gina. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much. I hope everyone who tuned in today, follow Tania, check out what she has to offer, and be kind to yourselves. And thanks for tuning in today.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.